Good evening, everyone. My name is Pete Berube. Tonight is the 11th of October. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the 11th of October Finance Committee meeting and ask committee members to quickly introduce themselves.
Jen Zaretsky.
Peter Underhill.
Joyce Briardi.
Jody Garson.
Kathy McInnes.
Mike Crone.
John Lore.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to get right to it. We're going to probably have a short meeting tonight. We really have a lot of work to do, though, between now and next week. So I would ask that Mr. McKay come to the table, and we're going to discuss the DPW capital item requests. Hi, Mr. McKay.
How are you?
Well, great. Thank you, sir.
Hate sitting there. So we'll start with the easy one, the DPW pickup truck. That is to replace a 2011 van. I'm sure you all see it. We call it the Scooby-Doo van that floats around Millis. It's made its life through. It has 100,000+ miles on it. It's starting to rust. I think I sent you those pictures. And it is definitely on the capital planning list to be replaced. And I would assume they're going to recommend that, but I don't know that for sure. The cost will be split between water and sewer. This vehicle is used for by the on-call weekend staff, which is mainly for water and sewer, visiting the wells and the stations. I think if you look at the quote, this time I left a plow off of this pickup truck. It'll give us hopefully, more of a life of, more than 10 years. There's no need for it to have a plow on it. We have plenty of vehicles that have plows. We actually have more plows than staff. And the water and sewer has already split many of the one-ton dump trucks. So they all have plows. When we need to plow the wells, we'll be able to do that. So that's a savings of it's $9,517 without the plow attachment. Any questions on that?
So the van is going to replace?
Mr.
This is going to replace,
Sorry. The van is going to replace by its pickup truck?
this pickup truck's going to replace the van.
Aye.
Yes.
Mr. Underhill.
Mr. McKay, hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Just a quick question.
Yep.
Previously, when you've submitted for vehicles that's been like on the state minimum price list, I forget the exact term, is this along
Definitely.
along those
Everything
lines?
I'm talking about tonight is.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
Yes. So, and that's a good question, and if I can quickly explain, people say, why don't you come in June? This vehicle's available. The pickup trucks are available at a certain time of year. Dump trucks are available at different time under that state contract. And it's here, and we should be able to get that, before the end of the year. As the pickup truck, the dump truck that was approved in May, that's actually being put together, and we'll have that ready for, and the good thing, we did get a sizable trade-in for the dump truck that we're trading in on the other one, and that will go, I'm sure, turn back into free cash at the end of next year.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Am I to read page 2, truck body equipment, item 5195, that, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong, so Knapheide 8-foot long steel service body, is that basically all the panels for all of the equipment that, all the lift
So
boxes essentially built in?
it's going to have the
toolboxes?
toolboxes, built in with, on the, accessible from the outside of the truck.
Yep, okay.
It'll have the opening for the gate turners and everything else that's needed for the water and sewer.
Great, okay. Thank you. Any more questions on that one? Okay.
So next, we'll quickly go over the PFAS treatment plant. Not that we should quickly go over it, because it's probably the most expensive thing that's going to be presented at town meeting. A couple of notes that we're finding that the costs that, when we put out a bid like this to get it 75%, so we can get ready to be put out for a town meeting vote, the prices are coming in, believe it or not, lower than what we anticipated and what we got at the first building. And the reason for that is the stock is there. The equipment's there. And we believe that hopefully we're planning on that the bidding will go out in January, and we feel that the same bidder that built the DeAngelis treatment plant will hopefully bid in, win this bid here too. So the cost of that, if you read the letter, I think Deirdre sent that to you at the very end from Kleinfelder. That's
Letter dated September 26th.
correct.
Okay.
And that was what was presented to the Capital Planning Committee. That letter was, addressed to them. Nothing's really has changed, except that they will redefine the cost between the 6.8 and 7.1 million. That could be lowered, and that will be ready for the Select Board on the 23rd. Speaking with the Town Administrator, the Finance Director, and the Treasurer Collector, it's, we believe, and she can speak for herself, she's here, but we believe that it's best that we go for the full amount appropriation. The grant is in place, and we're gonna have to pay, we will pay up front, and we will get reimbursed for those funds up to that almost $4 million. It's gonna be a little different than any grant that Millis has worked on. We're gonna have to prove that everything that's going into this plant is American-made, from the screws right to the tanks that are being used. So, and in order to get those monies back, we're gonna have to prove that every time we submit for payment. So, we are ready this will be ready to be put on I believe it's a warrant article in your book, and we will be ready and aggressively pushing to get this done. Knock on wood, with 1 and 2, DeAngelis has been up and running since the beginning of the year, and we've had no issues, not the beginning of the year, since July. All the tests we get back, we're still getting the high readings of the PFAS-6 from the raw water, and once it goes through the system, every one of the 26 PFAS, it all comes back ND, not undetected. So it's phenomenal that how a bunch of charcoal can remove all this stuff whoever thought of it, he's a smart person, and he's a rich man. So I don't know if you have questions on this.
Ms. Garzon?
The borrowing that we anticipate, would that be general fund borrowing? Would that be water borrowing?
There'll be water.
Okay.
It would be enterprise ratepayer. Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Cron?
2 questions.
Yep.
One, in looking at this, so if we get 3.5 or up to 4 million, and we get the drinking water SRF grant, our total cost would be 700,000?
No, the 700,000 is the 20% match grant that we have to put up for to receive the 3.4 million. It's a 20% matching grant.
Yeah.
We're gonna far exceed that because the building will cost $6 million. But so this was if something went out to bid for something like 4 million or 5, the town would have to pay that $700,000 for the matching to get the federal grant.
So what do we anticipate this total project will cost, and what would be our end of it, after everything has been granted, grants have been submitted and so forth?
It would be around as the DeAngelis, around 3.3 million that we'd be financing.
And second question, so we've got that plant, then we'd have this plant. Would that suffice to control or to eliminate PFAS from the drinking water necessary for this community?
Yes. That's my belief, that's my superintendent, and we can gauge that by what we pump out every single day and the necessity that's needed for the town. The only fallback about that is if one of them go offline, that could be a problem. So we would have to keep either wells 4, 5, or 6, one of them in active use. And the two, well 4 and well 5 are the lowest. It would be well 6 that would probably be mothballed because of the high readings that come out of it. Again, how can well 5 and 6 one head is here, the other one's here. Why is the readings in this one so high and lower on this one? We can't explain that.
So we would have 1, 2, and 3,
Mhm.
and then we'd keep 4 and 5 for backup. They wouldn't necessarily need filtration if they were used short-term because the readings are low enough right now.
We would still have to do the readings on them, and we would still have to report the readings. And if one of them exceeded then we'd have to take it offline and get the other, the other one that's down fixed quickly. I think that I had sent the board, the EPA is changing the regulations on PFAS, and they're taking, out of the PFAS 6, they're removing 2 of them, PFOS and POFOA, and one of them's the foam that's usually used for fighting fires, dry cleaning materials, and they want to regulate them separately. And if they regulate them separately, it's just like the PFAS 6 being read at 10 parts per trillion. One of them, they want to regulate at 0.4, which all 6 of our wells, without any treatment, highly exceed that number. And the other one is just going to be 0.0. And once that regulation goes into effect, which is probably 2.5 to 3 years away, all surrounding towns or even Millis, if one of them, you either take it offline or treat for it, because you can't exceed the 0.4. And we've proven that with the DeAngelis that it removes all those contaminants.
Mr. McKay, what do you anticipate the cost impact is of using 100% American-made parts, materials?
Again, we'll have that because the bid went out using all American-made. And they'll have that, the Kleinfelder will have that ready for the select board on their 25th, 23rd.
Okay, forgive me, I caught a little bit of that up front and
Yep.
maybe I flaked out a little.
And I definitely, once I get it, I will share it with you, because it's going to be interesting to see.
Okay. Any more questions on that? Okay.
Okay, lastly, the Vactor. I hope you all were able to read my justification for this vehicle. It's been something that we discussed with the town administrator, and we were looking at 2 vehicles. I think you've heard me talk about a catch basin cleaning truck and a Vactor. If we purchased the catch basin machine, it would definitely mean that we would have to go out and hire more staff to operate it. Right now, we have a contract with an outside vendor who comes and cleans all our catch basins. And I believe that it's in here somewhere, so there's like 1,100 catch basins, and they do that once a year. On Route 109, not in that number, on Route 109, there's 100 and something catch basins that are not accessible to be cleaned with a catch basin machine. They can't get the claw in there. They're a different type of basin. And when Route 109 was done over, they probably should have been replaced, but because of the cost of it, would have been on the burden of the town to replace them. It was chosen not to do it at that time. So each one of those catch basins need to be cleaned with a Vactor. And I can tell you that we don't clean them once a year. We were doing it like every other year. And the Caltech systems, and I think I listed all the Caltech systems where they are throughout the town, and that's up to us, the DPW, to have them cleaned, because we manage the stormwater account to have these all cleaned. They're over at the new school. There's several of them, and they're massive ones over at the school. At the Clyde Brown parking lot, there's a couple. And back of the public library and the police station, there's 3 or 4 more there. They're out in the system. They're out on Forest Road. And they're all over the place in Millis. And part of our 6-year permit, you'll see that when that'll be coming in May, these have to be cleaned, they have to be tested. They weren't as regulated in the first 5 years of the permit, but they will be needed to be done this year. We would use this vehicle for sewer cleaning. I think if you see in the truck, there's a hose in the front of it. And what that hose does, it has a high-velocity power water cannon that goes into the sewer. If the sewer's backed up, we can use that to free the sewer, and then the Vactor hose will clean it out. You draw the blockage and the silt and soot, whatever, right into the manhole, and the catch basin cleans it out. Yeah, the catch basin, the hose cleans out in the manhole. We would use it at water main breaks. Millis is a very old water system. It's very tough to get when you get everything shut down and you think you have a tight shutdown. There's always water coming out of that crack or that hole of that pipe, because it's extremely tough to get a complete shutdown. This truck would be able to be used to, no matter how much water you would pump out coming out of the main as it's broken, so we could repair it, would be able to keep up with that. Put it in the back of the truck. It has a hose, and it pumps it out. We pump it into the nearest catch basin or manhole. Emergency-wise, if we all remember the floods of this past year on Exchange Street, we were at the whim, and we were waiting for a contractor to send his Vactor here, and it was delayed by sometimes of days to 2 days of that to respond. Having this vehicle, it would have been, we would have had it ready and available to assist us. We used this to use the private contractor. We use his Vactor to help us when we make repairs to culverts. You never can get the water when you're replacing a culvert. You never can get it closed. And I got to tell you, we replaced very large culverts in Millis. The DPW has, and they were on. You can look at them. They're on Middlesex Street. Replaced a large culvert, the one under Middlesex Street. Replaced another one on Ridge Street. We replaced them on Village Street. And at each one of those times, we had a private contractor with his Vactor there, sitting there all day long. I did break down the cost to the best. Mr. Law asked me to, what would be the cost savings? And to the best of my ability, it's $36,041.75. That really doesn't include the response and quickness that we could, to an emergency situation that we would do with this truck. The breakdown is here of how it would be paid. Most of it would be paid out of the stormwater fund, because it would be mainly used for catch basin cleaning, these Caltech systems that would need to be cleaned. So that's why it's such a large fund, asking from that fund. The next would be water, sewer, and because it will be used in the general aspect, we will be using it over the school property to clean out their Caltech systems. It will be used at the police station, and it could be used to free sewers. Not that we're going to have to get rid of any type of blockage. If there's a sewer back up in the schools, they'll still probably have to get their inside people, but if it's blocked out in the street, we'll be able to take care of that problem for them. I did talk to Carol and about this yesterday at length, and we believe that it would be in the best interest, even though the funds are there and they're available in the reserve funds for each one of the enterprise funds. We believe it's best to, at this time, borrow that money for each one of them, and it wouldn't be a large. I don't know what the cost would be per homeowner at this time, because we just decided this, yesterday. But what we turn over every year in the stormwater, we believe that we could I don't want to make that promise, but we would have to look at it to see, what the rates would be, and that's not done until next July.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead.
If there is money, but I don't understand why you feel it's best to borrow if there is money.
If, let's say, a pump goes at one of the stations, any sewer, water, any one of them, right now there's only 250 in each one of them, about that, in water and sewer. in each of them, and
250.
1,000.
Thank you.
And it's best to always keep like we do with your reserves at the,
Right.
it's to keep a percentage, because you never know what could happen.
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Rutsky, I'll come to you.
Yeah, what's the expected lifespan of this truck?
Because of the use that we would have to keep this inside, we would expect it to last 15 to 20 years.
Mr. Cron?
Two questions. Could we buy this in conjunction with another town?
So we looked into that, and most of the other towns already have theirs. And I know Medway's in the process of purchasing one. Medfield is never wants to, get into that type of situation, because when you get into a situation like that, it's the idea of who's gonna maintain it, who's gonna fix it, what's the cost of it gonna be, and if they have an emergency and they need it, probably the same time during flooding, we're gonna need it.
So could we lease this out to other towns on an as-needed basis?
That's a good question, and I'd have to talk to the town administrator to see how that could be, folded into it. Yeah.
Mr. Lohr?
Could you talk about the training that's involved and
Sure.
the employees that
Yep.
are certified to use it?
Yep. So there's actually no real hoisting licenses, which we call engineering hoisting license, to operate this machine. The only endorsement that would be needed for this, it would be a tanker endorsement, because the back of the tank can hold up to 1,500 gallons worth of water. So to drive that vehicle, you would have to have a CDLB license, which everybody has in the DPW. We already have 3 people that have the tanker endorsement, and I'm quite sure that the union would be more than happy to have the rest of their people get them, so they could renegotiate that during contract time.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Garzon?
Based on the past 12 months of when you've needed a vehicle like this, approximately how many times a month would this actually be in use?
So if we have it, and with the workload of the catch basin cleaning and everything else, it would have to be out at least once a week, if not more than one time a week. And at this time, we would not look to hire somebody to just operate this vehicle. With training-wise, part of the contract is that they would have people come in and train on it. The DPW superintendent and myself, this is where I started out in this business, 30-something years ago, operating a Vector in the Boston Water and Sewer Commission. They're they are a dangerous machine. They're not, that hose, it'll go through anything. If you put it and you throttle that up, it'll go right, it'll go through you. It's, because I've seen it happen. It's not so people have to be, we would make sure that they were trained properly before anyone get into the vehicle.
So no new personnel required, and you could license others for the tanker endorsement if you needed it, or if the union required it.
Yep.
Came to, or negotiated that way. Maintenance costs on the vehicle?
Luckily, it's a Freightliner vehicle, and that's what we have with all our bigger trucks that you've approved over the past several years. They've all been Freightliner large vehicles. The maintenance would be, hopefully at the beginning, it would just be for oil changes and stuff like that, which it will all be done in-house. With the other large trucks, I think with one of the large Sanders, we've sent that out maybe twice since we've owned it, the large 10-wheeler.
Required to be garaged? Do you have
Yes,
space
absolutely.
available?
It would go into the wash bay, and if it need to be, it would be removed. I mean, that would be a place that, if the buses need them, wanted to wash them all weekend, would put it inside the garage itself.
What do you do in the winter when you need the wash bay?
It would go in the garage. When we have our open house, you'll see the tour, you'll see how the equipment all now fits, where there's no offices, everything is on 2 side walls, and the open area is wide open. Where
So
before
you have
we
no
used to-
concerns that you're gonna need
No.
additional space,
No.
or, so I guess that's
No.
what we're driving at. And just confirm.
Of course, we'd love more space, but
And just confirm that, so the 1,128 standard catch basins that you have that don't necessarily require Vector, capability, where you're currently using, you know, a 5-ton truck and a, you know, a
The
grapple,
clamshell. Yep,
you know, the clamshell, you wouldn't necessarily have to, you could use this on those.
We could, but that would be, if we took that ownership over of cleaning all those 1,100-plus catch basins, that's when we'd have to hire an outside person. I mean, we'd have to hire a new staff, because it would have to be running constantly. I mean, we'd have
Well,
to,
okay, so I'm just thinking out loud, I mean, I just don't see the payback unless you do that.
yeah.
I mean, okay, these are good savings and you could use it, but, you know, $36,000 in savings over 2 years doesn't really get you there.
Yep. I think you know, that might have been a typo with the 2-year savings.
That was my question.
It
Yeah.
kind of adds,
Yeah.
your
If you add
36,000
it up,
adds up
yep.
to the 4 examples that you
Yep,
use.
yep.
That's annual work.
Right. And when you look at when I use these numbers, it was two fiscal years from July till now. So is it 2 full years? I mean, it was, everything that was done, I think, it was done from July of last year.
Even so,
Until-
even if
Yep.
that is the case,
Yep.
your payback is
Yep.
infinite. It's a long time.
15.9 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's infinite in the calculation of, you know, payback.
But, Mr.
Everybody's looking for 7 or under.
Right, but
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I mean, also if you want to do the math, if it lasts 20 years, that'll get the town a net savings of $180,000.
Okay. You would get even more savings if you could use it on all the catch basins. And maybe you hire a guy for less than 500,000, you know.
And that would be my
There's
sell.
more analysis that could be done.
That would be, no, you know, my sell in May, when I go and I look for another full-time employee, which the select board's been promising the DPW for the past 8
More.
years, I will use that analysis. Now that we have the equipment, it's here, and now here's a reason why, you know, you should give us that personnel that we've been promised.
If it's smart and it saves the town
Yep.
operating budget, then I'm in favor of it, personally. Okay, any more questions, comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Next up, Mr. Gazinski, are you with us?
Mr. Chairman, I am. I have asked the finance director to kind of lead this discussion since she's there in person. I apologize. But due to me having COVID, it's not practical or safe for me to be there this evening.
I understand.
So I've asked the finance director to lead that, but I'm certainly here to answer any questions. If any specific questions come up that you'd like to refer to me. I would like to just clarify that this is still a draft warrant because the select board is meeting tomorrow evening to vote on this warrant. So this isn't the final warrant, but I believe it's very close to what will be the final warrant.
Okay, well, you've left it in able hands, and if we need you, we'll wake you up.
All right, thank you.
All right. All right, Ms. Johnson.
Okay. I believe
Yeah,
you
feel
all
better
have the
in a
warrant in
second.
front of you. The first article is for unpaid bills. It's $13,346.81, and they're all itemized and listed in front of you.
Anything
That's-
noteworthy? I mean, we get this every year. We understand.
Every year.
Yep.
There isn't anything it just, you know, they didn't make the cut
Yep.
when it was time to close the year out.
Okay.
They came in after. Article 2 is our standard additional operating budget for FY '24. This is the marijuana impact funds. Yep. So this listing here is the one from the annual town meeting in May. These were the remainders that would be funded at the fall. There is one item that was removed from that at the request to the town administrator. That was $9,200 for an administrative assistant help with the HCA.
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
Okay.
I do have another question.
Sure.
What is the total amount in free cash that is allocated to the marijuana impact funds?
So this year, the HCA in the free cash certification that was received in FY '23 is $400,365.33. So after spending, or after using the funds in Article 2, there'll be a remainder of $189,780 to be used at the Springtown meeting.
Hold on one second, Carol, I just want to
Sure.
make sure that Jody has that.
That's 400, 365, 33.
400, 365, 33, right.
And the remainder is 189, 780.
189, 780, right.
All right, great, thanks.
We also, in the free cash, just so that you're aware, we have opioid settlement funding that came in this year. So of that 3.2 million, the 400,000 comes out from marijuana impact funds, but also $44,208.57 has to be set aside to be spent only for opioid mitigation.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Cron?
Are we to assume that the HCA would expire at the end of fiscal 2024?
No, the fund, what we currently have in free cash now is typically spent in this particular year. We are still receiving money for the HCA agreement. We're in the fourth year, so that there will be money through this year, and then there'll be 6 months in next year.
6 months of next year.
And all of that funding isn't available for us to spend until after it's certified in free cash to be in the following November.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Article 3. Article 3 is the capital items. I think next week you're going to hear from the capital committee, but right now.
The 18th.
Oh, you're actually going to get a update from you this evening, right?
A summary if needed, but Jonathan Barry is going to be.
Okay.
Jonathan Barry is going to go to the select board meeting tomorrow on the 12th,
right.
and then the 18th here.
Okay.
Right. So for right now, what we have listed for capital would be the public safety radio antenna for the fire department for $89,373. HVAC repairs for town buildings, that would be the VMB and the fire department, $75,000. Mr. McKay already spoke about the, excuse me, the Chevy Silverado pickup truck for water sewer for $84,906, and the library Phase 2 lighting for $110,000. So our current capital is $359,279.
So these 4 items, Carol, are not necessarily select board voted, but they are select board inputs?
Right. So tomorrow evening, there'll be the official vote.
And the vac truck wouldn't be included here because it's,
Is going to be a borrowing,
yeah, okay.
or a setup for a borrowing.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Crum?
There was some discussion about the possibility of leasing. Is there a new antenna going up for the fire safety?
So there
What we're looking at.
is a new cellular tower going up that's going to be owned by some facility, and they're going to allow us to put an antenna on it, and that's the cost of just putting our antenna on it.
And just to add, the cost of the antennas, call it $500,000, and then Mills' portion will be this 89,000 or so, which police, fire, and DPW can use to cover areas that are not covered in the town from a radio
But it's
standpoint.
not our antenna, it's someone else's.
Correct. But we
It
do
won't
get- we
be
do
our
get lease-
cellular tower, but it would be our antenna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And we do get lease payments from the company
Right,
itself
we'll
to
be
the
getting
town.
lease payments every year for them using town property for the cellular antenna.
And would this increase with this new antenna that they're putting up? Or is it an existing antenna?
No, it's a new cell tower, so we already have a cell tower, this will be an additional cell tower
So will
in
we
the
get
town.
extra funds, extra rental income from the new cell tower?
Yes.
And what would that be roughly?
I don't know, I'm not in on the negotiations, but apparently, Ms.
Per the,
McGinnis
if I may,
might
Mr.
know.
Chairman, per the bid that was submitted, it would be $30,000 a year. Would be the annual payment to the town.
Okay, so in 3 years, years, it would kind of pay for this antenna system.
Right, exactly.
Can I just ask either Carol or Mike or John, whoever wants to take a crack at it, just to clarify that there is a new tower going up, and the tower will go, basically as being, it's on leased land, and that's where it generates the $30,000 in revenue, as I understand it. And when we talk about an antenna, that is basically equipment that is purchased and mounted on an antenna. So the word antenna is separate and distinct from a tower. They're not one and the same. And if you think of them as one and the same, it gets confusing.
That's correct. The cell company is actually putting up a tower which will have cell equipment on it. And per the FCC regulations, the town has the access to the very top of the tower to put its antenna and radio equipment on it.
Very good. Thank you for clarifying, because had you not clarified, the next question is, why do we have to pay anything at all? Why not just use the revenue to pay for the 89,000? But the 89,000 is for equipment that gets mounted onto a tower.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
That's
Chair,
correct.
Ms. Garzon?
and where will the tower be located?
Mike, could you tell them where the tower is going to be located?
Yes, it's on Norfolk Road. Right near, there's a piece of land that the water department has equipment on, and it's within that piece of land near I believe it's the southern end of Norfolk Road.
Will all of the major cell carriers who owns the tower?
The tower is owned by a private tower company, and they will be leasing out space to the different cellular companies
So
on their tower.
Okay. Okay, thank you. A lot of questions on that one.
Learn something new every day.
Article
Please
4
proceed, thanks.
is for, Mr. McKay already went through the description of the new well 3. So that's the $7.1 million authorization to borrow for that. Article 5 is for $500,000 for road sidewalk construction, design, repair, and maintenance. Article 6, Mr. McKay already covered that as well, the new Vector truck. Would be a borrowing of $573,559. Article.
Carol, if I
Yeah,
can stop
yeah.
you, is that planned to be short-term borrowing? I assume it's not.
For the
Yes.
Vector truck? I don't know, we'd have to talk it over with Charter, but we probably could do a ban I think you could do a ban for 5 to 10 years.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Underhill?
if we could just go back to Article 5 real quick, that 500,000 for
Sure.
road sidewalk, would that be transfer from free cash?
Yes, it would be
Okay.
free cash.
Thank you.
Article 7, the school has asked for an additional lease of one bus for $136,100. It would be a 5-year term for one bus. Article 8 is $7,800 for the biannual OPEB actuarial study. That's done as a requirement for our audit. So it covers a 2-year. One is an intense actuarial study, brings it up to date. The second is just a cursory one that's done as part of the audit. And Article 9 would be to fund the Special Education Fund for $320,784. That amount is arrived at by DESI. It gives us the net school spending for the town, and based on the net school spending of $16 million at 2%, this is the amount that we could put into a special education fund. Any spending out of that fund would require school committee approval as well as select board approval. And we established that in the spring. We did not fund it at the time, though. Article 10 is $300 to fund the 111F injury. That's the worker comp fund for the police and fire department.
Ms. Boярdi?
For Article 9, it has to be approved by who? School committee and who?
Select
Article 9,
Select
any,
board.
any funding, any spending out of it has to be approved by school committee and the select board.
And what were you saying about DESI?
I'm sorry, say it again?
About DESI?
Oh, so DESI, on the DESI website, they will show you what the net school spending is for each community. And for required net school spending for fiscal year '24 for Millis, it's $16,039,203. And 2% of that is the $320,784.
So essentially, it's being funded to the maximum allowable.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Cron?
on number 10, could you explain to us what this fund is and how it differs from, I mean, well, I guess first.
We're self-funded
We're
for
we're
police and
self-insured
fire.
for police and fire?
Yes.
Okay, so we've looked at insurance, it's way out of whack, we've decided to self-insure.
We do pay work comp insurance for medical expenses, I believe, Mike. You can jump in at that, and that runs about $180,000 each year, just for that portion of it. That doesn't include the wages for the fire or police.
And
So, Mrs. Chairman, if I may, so we do get the maximum insurance coverage available for this through our Maya insurance policy. A lot of this goes back to a statute that the town accepted back in the 80s that requires the town to pay certain medical expenses and other expenses related to injury on duty for fire and police officers. So this is this fund is how the state recommends towns cover unexpected expenses related to those costs. And again, we are in constant contact with our insurance folks to try to maximize the insurance coverage possible. But we're at the cap currently, so we are continuing to work with them to do that. But this does cover us. This fund allows us to fill in the gaps when we have unexpected folks that are out due to injured on duty through our fire and police department.
So, thank you. So 2 follow-ups then. One, what is the percentage of salary that we pay to police and fire when they're out on disability?
100% of their base.
That's correct.
And
And-
second, what's the history of use of this fund? Monetary history?
We have we have just recently, within the last couple of years, had this fund set up before it would hit the operating budget of the fire department. What would end up happening is the injured officers paid at 100%. The coverage form is paid at 1.5 times whoever is covering for that shift. So the fire department and police departments were getting overwhelmed with expenses and not being able to cover their budgets due to this. So we found that we could establish this fund, and so now it's been 2 years that we've funded this. We put $300,000 in, last fall. We have a balance of $144,000 right now, and that's including we get about $1,000 a week for each of the people that are out on workers' comp. That goes into this fund to offset it. But I think that right now, we have 3 people currently on it. One may be coming off, but I think we may have 1 or 2 going on. And if we take the 3 individuals that we have right now, if we had to pay them their full salary for a whole year, it would be $273,000.
Okay, thank you.
Article 11 is to fund the OPEB trust fund account. That would be $50,000. And Article 12 is to fund the stabilization fund, $700,000. Of the $700,000, $400,000 is putting back the money that we allocated in the spring. And so it would essentially just be putting an additional $300,000 into stabilization.
Mr. Kuzinski, regarding Article 12, I know that we traditionally leave that as Article 12, but do you know if there's been any discussion about moving that up front in the warrant? And the reason I ask is because it shows up front that we're paying back what we intended to pay back, and it potentially gets voted on very quickly, and it gets brought to people's attention that we are carrying through versus us, versus the town proposing, or the select board proposing to spend in Articles 1 through 11 before showing that we're doing what we said we intended to do, which is payback stabilization first and foremost.
I could certainly speak with the select board about that tomorrow night, if that's the recommendation or the request of the finance committee. It's last on the warrant, because generally that item stabilization is last. But if there's a feeling that a statement should be made by doing this at the very beginning of the meeting, I can certainly put that forward to the select board for their discussion at their meeting tomorrow evening.
I guess my only ask is, as a courtesy, you float the idea. I don't think we're requiring it, or I don't intend to, belabor it. And it doesn't need to be Article 1. I'm just thinking Article 12 is not optimum.
Well, I can certainly carry that message forward for that discussion to see if what the thoughts of the select board are in regards to maybe a different placement in the warrant.
Okay. Thank you. Great job, Ms. Johnston.
Thank you very much.
No doubt.
You're welcome.
Okay, real quickly, before we move on to the minority or the tri-county, essentially reading of our majority and minority opinions, I'm gonna assign articles, because, and even though we're not voting them, I wanna go into next week's kind of final meeting before we do a lot of work, with us each knowing which articles we're responsible for. Okay, so if you go to page 3 in the warrant article list, probably be the best place to navigate this from. Unpaid bills, Joyce has volunteered for. Operating budget adjustments, any volunteers?
I'll do that one.
Okay, Mr. Lohr, you're gonna do number 3.
You're gonna do 2 and 3.
You're also gonna do number 2, so thank you very much. PFAS, I will volunteer for, but I will defer to anybody else that wants to do it.
You wanna swap? You wanna do number 2 and I'll do number 4?
No, I'll take 4. Road and sidewalk construction, design and repair, near and dear to my heart, but I, again, defer to anybody that wants to do sidewalks, talk about sidewalks.
I'll take it.
Okay, Pete, you, thank you. Vac truck borrowing and authorization. Mr. Crone, thank you. And you know where you can get information. Bus lease borrowing authorization. I was gonna write down Sarah, but,
She did the buses last time. So.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sarah. OPEB,
Well, that's the actuarial study.
right.
We'll do
Okay.
that.
The special education fund, I have Joyce down.
Unless somebody else wants it.
Number 10, that's the Section 111F Injury Leave Indemnity Fund. Jen, or, is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. OPEB Trust Fund,
Yeah, I'll do that. And the next one.
okay. Did I shortchange anybody? It's a short article list, obviously, so. Okay, so I'm just gonna read through these one time, and we can make adjustments. This is not final. Joyce, Article 1, John Lore, Article 2 and 3, Pete B, Article 4, Peter Underhill, Article 5, Mike Crone, Article 6, Sarah, Article 7, Kathy, Article 8, who did I write down? Joyce for Article 9, Jen for Article 10, Jody for Articles 11 and 12. Okay, just tentative, that way you, you have an idea of what you're doing before we get there. 6 and 7 is Mike and Sarah, in that order, okay?
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Garzon?
So, I put together a little analysis of free cash, just so we know kind of where this puts us after this fall town meeting. So, we have about 2.8 million that would be free cash that's not marijuana funds or opioid funds. Because this 3.266 free cash balance includes those restricted funds. So if we pull those out, then we get kind of the unrestricted free cash, if you will. So what's anticipated here, after all of these warrant articles and the capital items, would spend about 2.166 million, leaving us about 655,000 in free cash for spring. So it's just, to be aware of what we would be saving for free cash. Now that we've made some changes to the budgets, like particularly the school budget with buses and computer leases and things like that, we don't have those kind of must funds, as many of the must funds as we used to have.
Out of free cash.
Out of free cash at Springtown meeting. So, but that's what would be available for capital items in the spring. We usually don't do a lot of capital items in the spring, but, every year seems unusual these days. So, but we are allocating a good chunk towards roads, which everyone, it's the hue and cry of every, particularly spring, once, the thaw has come.
And not to mention almost doubling into the stabilization fund what we took out.
Correct.
Which we thought was gonna take us 3 years, and fully funding the special education fund. 'Cause we're in
Right.
a much better position than we thought we would be.
Exactly. This is putting funds into those, special funds that are there for us to use in future years. It's not just out the door and gone. So, and putting some money into OPEB, which helps with borrowing. If we continue to show a pattern of putting at least something in there, it's a ridiculous shortfall that,
Quick question, Joe.
Yeah.
So, the number Carol talked about, the 189,000, is that included in the 655,000? When we were going through the capital items on Article 3, she said something like 436 minus the capital items, 189 for spring meeting.
That was what was left.
Yeah. So
I
that's
didn't,
You had asked her the question, and then you came up with 189,000 left.
yes. I'm just talking unallocated.
Okay.
So for the marijuana funds,
Yeah.
that's an additional 189, 780 that we would have to allocate in the spring.
Okay.
And then also the opioid funds, which right now are $44,208.57.
Gotcha.
So that's not in total, but I think of this as the, unrestricted free cash
Yeah.
that we have to allocate, as need be. The marijuana funds obviously have other restrictions there. But I like to kind of have it in mind of thinking through what we're gonna need for the spring.
Yep.
For different articles, and, is it a reasonable amount? I would say yes, particularly since what we are allocating the funds to for stabilization and the injury leave fund and special ed stabilization are savings accounts, if you will. They will be used, but it's not just money out the door that we won't be able to use for future
It's a-
fiscal years.
It's definitely conservative. It's a conservative approach to what to do with with free cash.
Correct.
I think, OPEB too, you don't realize it, how significant a factor OPEB is, for those who don't know, other post-employment benefits. The deficit that we arrive in every year, in other communities, they've put these aside now for some time. It's good for us to start this and start putting it in every year, because those costs just become astronomical over time. And they don't go down as people are living longer.
Right.
So they just keep going up.
Right, and it affects our bond rating and it,
Well, and it's
Along
going, it's
other
going
things.
to come due.
Yeah.
I mean, they're-
Yeah, I mean,
they
I sat
will-
on an OPEB committee 15 years ago when we
Yeah.
first started in the past community, and today that fund is significant, and it helps the town a lot. So it's a good thing to start this now. It always starts slow. You're not gonna put $700,000 into it. You're not gonna justify that at a time when, other budgets are in deficit mode. But if you start it off and consistently do it each year, these are the types of funds that really make a difference in the long run. And as you said, bond ratings are definitely impacted by this.
correct.
It shows your forward thinking.
Right, yeah.
If you would be so kind as to email that to Deirdre and I, and then we'll make sure that it gets posted to meeting materials, once you finalize it, and then we can put it on the agenda again for a future meeting, whether it be next week or after, so that everybody has a copy of it, and we can ask questions and discuss it, in open,
Yep.
in a public meeting, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I like to have it when Ms. Johnston is gonna be here, so I
Yep.
know what questions
Yep,
to ask her.
Definitely. Thank you for doing that. I definitely can't keep a spreadsheet and do this meeting at the same time.
Yeah, my spreadsheet would be
very
limited.
limited.
My chicken scratch, I was off by 50,000, so you had me beat, so.
Okay, next on the agenda, so what we're gonna do is just read the verbatim, Mr. Underhill and I are gonna read verbatim this document, just to get our Finance Committee vote and discussion essentially officially on the record. I'm gonna ask Deirdre to make sure that it's included in the minutes verbatim, and that it gets posted to the meeting materials. So with that said, I'll start. On 24 October of 2023, there will be 2 ballot votes on measures relating to the Tri-County Vocational Technical High School, or TCVTHS. Background: Millis is one of 11 communities which send students who opt to pursue vocational education to the facility located in Franklin. Millis incurs a financial obligation for each student who attends TCVTHS. The TCVTHS needs major repairs, upgrades, and investment in order to sustain its operation. TCVTHS entered the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, process for state subsidized renovation or replacement. The TCVTHS School Committee subsequently evaluated options for the required work and selected a total replacement project valued at approximately $286 million. Under state law, MGL Chapter 71, Section 16N, approval of the project will be decided via a district-wide ballot needing a simple majority of the town's aggregate ballot count to pass. Each of the 11 towns will simultaneously vote for 8 hours on October 24th from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. This issue was presented to Millis voters as the authorization question. If the project passes the district-wide vote, TCVTHS will then be authorized to secure funding via a 30-year bond and proceed with detailed design documents and eventual construction. Under state law, costs associated with repair or replacement of the school are to be divided amongst the participating communities on a prorated share based on the respective town's student population at TCVTHS. Millis's historic student population at Tri-County has ranged from about 35 to 60 students annually, or approximately 3.5 to 6% of total population. Millis's calculated share of the estimated annual obligation for the construction is $482,371 per year for 30 years. As Millis does not have available operating budget capacity to cover this obligation, a debt exclusion or operational override will be required. Approval for this override is presented on a second ballot as the debt exclusion question. Given that Millis's TCVTHS student population varies from year to year, Millis taxpayer burden from for the project will range from $135 to $214 per year for the average assessed home value of $510,856. On 27 September, the Millis Finance Committee voted in a split count of 5 to 4 not in favor of the TCVTHS project. The Finance Committee voted 8 to 1 in favor of the local debt exclusion in the event the district-wide vote approves the project. This is the majority opinion that I'm about to read. Discussion. It is strongly felt that adding to the Millis taxpayer burden for the TCVTHS project will come to the detriment of the Millis Public School District. There are 3 potential overrides forecast in the next several years, those being, and listed in anticipated chronological order, the TCVTHS construction, Millis estimated share $482,371 per year at $135 to $214 per year for average assessed home value. Number 2, Millis Public School SPED funding shortfall, $900,000, and sunsetting of marijuana retail sales host community impact funding, $400,000, for a total of $255 to $373 per year for the average assessed home value. Number 3, Millis High School renovate, repair, add, alter project, $35 to $50 million, which would be potentially $292 to $398 per year for the averaged assessed home value. The above potential overrides, if passed, would add $682 to $985 per year tax burden at the average assessed home value. We simply cannot recommend approval of every project as presented. Tough choices must be made in line with sensible priorities. In the case of the TCVTHS project, we object to the following. The project was not designed with cost burden in mind. The project includes tens of millions of dollars in athletic fields and other MSBA non-reimbursable costs. Number 2, community engagement was insufficient from project onset. The towns did not have adequate opportunity to participate in development nor selection of project concepts or schematic designs. Number 3, the MSBA reimbursement cost calculation is inadequate. Vocational technical high schools are much more expensive than traditional schools, thus the reimbursement formulas must be modified to boost state aid. Number 4, while TCVTHS markets itself as an alternative to the traditional college prep education, it duplicates much of what Millis High School already provides, including college prep and AP courses, thus putting itself in direct competition for limited resources. Further increasing Millis's already high tax rate without investing in our own district facilities does not attract new residents or growth to the community. Rather, it could have the opposite effect, driving families away from Millis due to the lack of affordability and or dilapidating middle and high school. Given the fiscal constraints, it is more prudent for Millis to invest in the school that supports nearly all of its middle and high school students. A district-wide no vote on the project ballot could have the effect of delaying the Tri-County Vocational Technical High School's project implementation and force reconsideration of the plan. The following Finance Committee members recommend a no vote on the proposed replacement plan for the Tri-County Vocational Technical High School. Peter Berube, Michael Crone, Jonathan Lohr, Sarah Reyes, Jen Zaretsky.
The minority opinion. Our recommendation for a yes vote on the Tri-County School Replacement Plan is based on the hard construction numbers. Number 1, the cost of replacing the school after reimbursement by the state is $200 million. The cost to renovate the existing Tri-County building instead of replacing it is estimated to be at $180 million. 3, for 10% more, Tri-County students will have a brand new school rather than a renovated one with a substantially shorter usable lifespan than new construction. The renovation work will most likely be more expensive than the estimates due to additional issues that will become apparent when the work commences. Older buildings, such as the existing Tri-County School, will most likely need remediation of harmful materials used in the construction and will lead to additional expenses. Also, renovating the school while students are occupying it for classes will be highly disruptive to the classroom and hands-on training happening throughout the school year. Finally, the nature of the technical school training has changed greatly since the building was designed and built. A renovation will not be the best usage of space for that training due to reusing existing structure rather than designing and building a new building to train students to current standards. Many of the objections raised about this project were about the process involved in choosing the design of the new school, the method of authorizing the building of the new school, and the level of reimbursement by the state. While we share those concerns and agree they should be addressed with the state, it will not have an impact on the plan in front of us now. A no vote will result in either a plan being presented to us using the same policies and processes in place now, a new construction plan that will not include reimbursement from the state due to the delay, or massive renovations to the Tri-County School building that Millis will be obligated to pay for under the existing apportionment with Tri-County without state reimbursement. The following Finance Committee members recommend a yes vote on the proposed replacement plan for the Tri-County Vocational Technical High School. Joyce Boyardi, Jody Garzone, Kathy McGinnis, Peter Underhill.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to the,
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Cron.
With respect to the minority opinion, I've been made known, or it's been made known to me, that reimbursement for renovations is a possibility by the state. And this is
That-
from a former state legislator.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that stating that there would be no reimbursement for renovations, including renovations to our own school system, is accurate. So I would say maybe before we make that statement, we do perhaps some more, investigation on that, because I think that does set, a tone for that.
Well, I base that, and I watched the recording of the presentation
What
of the
she
Finance
said.
Committee on what was presented to us.
Right, but I don't know that that's accurate.
Okay, so we can take, I understand your point. We're not gonna, I don't think we need to discuss it further right now, because I don't think we're gonna get an answer to that right now.
No.
But we will verify it, and if there's a correction needed, we'll correct it,
Thank you.
okay?
Yeah.
By the end of the week.
Perhaps
Okay.
Mr. Kaczynski knows too, because I'm sure that the school is looking at that in terms of the renovation of our school and whether there'd be a reimbursement from the state.
Mr. Kaczynski, do you care to comment?
I'm not 100% sure on this issue. I know that the state did have a repair program, and they have stopped some of that repair program, but I'm not 100% sure of what type of repair program remains. So I would have to look at that to be able to answer conclusively.
Okay, so, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I will take the lead. I'll work with Mr. Underhill, who has more or less captained the minority voters to draft that statement, and we'll clarify or correct that before it goes to the final version. There's a draft version of this document currently posted. So before the draft gets removed and before it gets posted, we will clarify and correct if necessary. My intent would be, once that's done, I will specify that Deirdre post the materials as the final version. And it is at that point that I believe that it is up to us or anybody that can link to documents as they choose as private, citizens. We cannot, as discussed in our previous meeting, we cannot do it as members of the Finance Committee. We can't send out a mailing. We can't post to town websites this particular opinion, other than apparently our own meeting materials or our own transcripts, meeting minutes and meeting materials. So once the document goes final, I'll confirm that again one last time with the town administrator and the town attorney, and I will notify, and, you know, at that point, once it's on the website, you know, people can link to it all they want to their heart's content. And I don't necessarily agree with the kind of the prohibition on a political, this being a political matter that we as public officials can't disseminate an opinion on. I don't think this hard time I have with it is that I don't see it as a political issue. Nonetheless, those are the rules, and I'm certainly always, I'm not willing to kind of bump up to the gray area even if there is one on this. So that's what will happen with it. And if the case is that we then can post and link to it, then I ask that you do it, because really, this all along was about bringing awareness to this issue and giving a recommendation, because I felt it was within our purpose and our charter to do so, whether it was a warrant article or not, as we've previously discussed. So again, I will let you know, and then it's up to you to do what you want as individual members. So, okay?
Mr. Chair,
Miss.
can I just ask that my
McGinnis?
name be spelled right on, there's not two S's,
Yes,
two N's,
certainly.
one
I
S.
apologize for that. I think Microsoft Word does not like your last name and it autocorrected.
Are you
I'm
sure?
sorry about that.
Are you sure it's spelled wrong?
Good catch.
And I'd like to thank Mr. Crone for helping out with that information. We need to make sure we're getting.
Yeah, I know you depended on what was said,
Right.
and I asked about that, and they said, at least it was, major renovation. It would have to be significant renovation,
Yeah.
was assisted by the state fund.
Okay.
But again, like Mr. Grozinski says, that may have been the case, may not be the case anymore, but it would be good to find
Oh,
out.
it's important to get
Yeah.
correct information,
Yep.
so thank you.
And a lot of what we're, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
that June meeting at Tri-County, that's another, that was presented to us at that point, that it was not. So that's where a lot of that information came from, was
And
what
it
was
could be the case,
presented.
but
Yeah, just letting you, yeah, but I think it's great that you got some information that it might be.
I'll just cap it off by saying that, you know, this is clearly not a controversial issue, but it's definitely an issue worth discussing. We, as illustrated by our vote, I just want to thank everybody, because we've there's always been a spirit of collaboration amongst this group to help one another. So I had help certainly with drafting, you know, the discussion comments, and I know Mr. Underhill did, and we've always listened and respected each other, what we have to say. So I want to thank you. It's great. So, okay, next on the agenda is bills payable.
That's
Oh,
postponed.
postponed, sorry. Right there in red. Okay, meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes as written of October the 4th.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to approve the minutes from October 4th. Further discussion? None heard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. And I believe there's one abstention? Okay. And who is the abstaining person?
Oh, it should be me.
Mike
Yep.
Crum.
It should be me, I'm sorry, that's right,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
And, okay, so next, before we adjourn, next week, we will essentially, I'm gonna go to the, I invite you all to go to, I'm not gonna convene a meeting. If we go to the meeting, the select board meeting tomorrow, I'm not gonna convene a meeting, because we haven't posted a meeting, we're just not gonna talk. We're gonna look the other way and you know, pretend each other aren't there. But I would encourage you to, if you want the background, additional background before we vote next week, that you would go to the meeting or watch it on TV. But then the following week, we will have a meeting on the 18th, and we will vote everything. And if we don't, then it will be a recommended at town meeting, which, you know, I don't really see any reason that we would ever do that at this fall town meeting, so, okay? We'll see you all next week.
I
Thank
move
you
we
very much.
adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
aye,
Thank you very much, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.